This is Grief and Grit, from heartache to high fives with a dash of sass. The podcast that turns the tables on traditional grief talks with a fresh, sassy spin. Listen in for candid conversations about the messy, awkward, and downright hilarious aspects of dealing with loss. Because sometimes the best way to cope is with a little laughter and a lot of grit.
Welcome to Grief and Grit. This episode is part of a special series on suicide and mental health, released during Suicide Prevention Month. Suicide impacts far too many families, and yet it's often a conversation met with silence and stigma. By sharing stories of loss, resilience, and hope, we want to create space for honesty, healing, and connection. If you or someone you love is struggling, please know you are not alone. You can dial 988 in the U.S. for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline to be connected with support right away. We are honored to bring these conversations to light and thank today's guest for bravely sharing their story.
Today, I'm really pleased to introduce someone I've known for a long, long time, my friend Mitch Cohen, who we're so grateful to have you here, Mitch. And Mitch lost his wife 12 years ago, and he's going to speak to us and speak his story. And as always, we're so grateful when people come on the show and show their vulnerability and have the ability to share and to help. And I think it's so important. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys for inviting me. It's wonderful to be here. And this is a very important topic because in our culture, we do not do grief very well.
We really don't. No. We really don't. And I don't know at what point it's going to become just a normal way of life, because in so many other cultures, it's just a normal way of life. Mm-hmm. Here, we shy away from it. And I think especially in your situation, Suzette died by suicide. And I think that is just added onto what's not comfortable to speak about. So We're not comfortable with grief, and we're definitely not comfortable with suicide. So we appreciate you.
Yes.
And for everybody listening today, I think this is a really, really important topic and something that's very prevalent in our society today. It's become any age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually, I want to say within the last 2-3 years, over 40,000 Americans die each year by suicide.
Wow.
That's more than people who die in car accidents on the highway.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. I knew it, the statistics were high, but I had no idea. Share with us a little bit about Suzette so that we have an idea of who she was and what she meant to all of you and memories that you have of her. And I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, so the first thing to talk about is how we met, because neither one of us that night in 1982 had any intention of going to the Jewish Community Center. There was a singles group back then, and this is when the JCC was in town. It was in Buckhead. Mm-hmm. And I just got out of college, went to Georgia Tech, and I was working as an engineer on that construction that went on. Now it's the MARTA and I-85, that work was going on back then.
Right.
And I was living in Avondale Estates. So I went to a couple of meetings there and, just really wasn't my thing, but my toe had been put back in the water as I tried to engage myself with Judaism. I'd been checked out since age 15 prior to that. Mm-hmm. I wasn't going to go. I went home. I was like, man, I'm tired. But the speaker, it was Dr. Bowles from Georgia State. She was a sociology professor, and I'd really gotten into psychology after I graduated engineering, which is probably the wrong major for me. So I was reading everything I could get my hands on. And her topic was sexuality in other cultures from a sociology perspective.
Right.
So it's like, all right, you know what? This is a good talk. So let me just go. I'll just listen to her, leave, go home. Suzette was at her sister's house at the time. She was married for a short time before we met. The young man came out of the closet, and that ended their marriage.
Wow.
Both went on to live good lives. So,
Mhm.
no hard feelings between them. It just, went the way it went.
Right.
She was in a rough spot, and she just told her sister, I don't want to go down there tonight. I'm not in the mood. And her sister Janine said, why not? Just go. It's a good topic, and she's your professor. And Dr. Bowles was her professor.
Mm-hmm.
And so she went. Dr. Bowles didn't show up.
After all that.
my
After all that.
After wow.
Right. Something came up, and they wheeled in a pot of coffee and a gallon of ice cream and said, this is now a coffee break. And I looked over, and, she was beautiful.
Mhm.
Big blue eyes, and
Yeah.
she had kind of a new wave haircut. And I'm a musician, so I was really into new wave music of the late 70s. And there were like 5 guys and her that kind of got together. We were just all talking, and then there were 4 guys and her, and then there were 3 guys and her, and there was just us.
Aw.
So the IHOP was right next door.
Oh, okay.
And I said, you want to go grab some more coffee, talk? And we did. We went over there and just hit it off. And,
Wow.
so I asked her, to go out. She did, and the rest was history.
Right. Right.
So that was October of 1982,
Mm-hmm.
and we were married September of 1983.
Okay.
That was
So
quick.
Nice. Yeah.
11 months
Really
later.
quick.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So you really knew this was your girl.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had a lot in common. Both grew up in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Both our families, I call it, immigrated down to Atlanta. Both working class families. So the values were the same.
Mm-hmm.
My father-in-law owned a deli, and I worked my way through Georgia Tech in the restaurant business. So, I understood the food business,
Wow.
helped out on the weekends at the deli.
Yeah.
So it was
It
just
was just
right. Everything just lined up.
right,
Wow.
right. Everything was just perfect.
What I didn't know, I learned, I didn't learn the impact, but both her parents were Holocaust survivors.
Oh.
Right. Her mother left when she was only 3, 1938, right after Kristallnacht.
Wow.
But her father wasn't so lucky. Her father lived in Belgium. Her grandfather was some high up in the political, the government of Belgium at the time. Kind of like Anne Frank, they had them in safe houses, constantly moving them around Brussels.
Right.
1944, my father-in-law was out stealing potatoes and came home, and the SS was marching his family out. His mother nodded to him, and he ran back into the fields. That's how he survived.
Wow.
They were on the last train to Auschwitz,
Wow.
and he was the only one who he thought survived. 1961, he found an aunt who had gone to England. And I had no clue the impact that being a child of Holocaust survivors has, even if it's just one parent, but to have 2.
Yeah.
It had a big psychological impact. My father-in-law really struggled with manic depression, and he was in the hospital. He was hospitalized a couple of times in the 1960s. And imagine being a little girl,
Absolutely.
under age 9,
Yeah.
and seeing your father have a meltdown,
Absolutely.
and
heartbreaking.
mother feeling helpless and all of that.
Right.
And the community was not supportive at all.
Right.
Really.
They were
Almost shunned them.
Avoidance.
the stigma of mental health.
Even back then.
Yes.
That's when it started.
And they lived in Washington Heights in New York City, which was a big community of Holocaust survivors.
Huge, right.
But there still was the shunning of those that were really struggling. That's why they moved to Atlanta. And he worked as a kosher butcher and had another breakdown. And when he got out of the hospital and went back to work, they changed the locks on the doors because they didn't want him back.
Oh my gosh.
So, that really impacted the family too.
Yeah.
So I believe, looking back, that she was holding on to all of that without really any structure of support. And throughout our marriage, she was very even keeled. She had a very small safety zone or comfort zone. That I did notice.
Right.
And of course, hindsight's 2020. It was probably because that's where she felt safe. If, she got outside of that narrow comfort zone, it would bring up anxiety. But I also think, she was a superstar, in high school, valedictorian, the
Amazing.
whole 9 yards.
Yeah, and she was huge in the Jewish community.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Graduated Georgia State, highest honors, and a father who was brilliant, only had a sixth grade education. So flash forward to menopause. Menopause hits. Two of our sons were already out of college. My oldest was in medical school. The middle one was in physical therapy school. The younger one was a senior. And she was really having a hard time with empty nest because her whole identity had
With
been
her children.
being a mother. Because she wanted to give our kids the life that she didn't get.
Right.
Comfort, support, security.
Right.
Yeah.
So the middle son was getting married. My older son had a girlfriend. And I think the weight of what happens next when all the boys move out, and of course, boys tend to go with their wives.
Of course. Yeah.
Weighed heavy. Now add menopause on top of that. And it appears that she inherited that bipolar gene from her father.
Oh, that she had never displayed.
It had
never shown itself.
No.
Wow.
No mood swings. Was pretty even keeled. Big heart. As you said, she was
did everything for the community.
Yeah. Very active at the JCC. She worked with interfaith couples who wanted to raise Jewish children. She worked with the moms to teach them how.
I remember that.
So she was working at the Jewish Community Center, doing work with a program that helped non-Jewish women married to Jewish men learn how to raise Jewish children.
Jewish children, right.
And they cut the program, and she took it very personally. And that was the first time I ever saw her spin into a depression. Now, ironically, I was the one throughout the years that would hit these periods of generalized anxiety and depression. So I knew what it was. And I knew it wasn't a forever thing. And I knew that it sucked when you're in it.
Right.
So I did all I could to support her, letting her know she's going to get through this, thinking it was all job related. And she lost a lot of weight, wasn't sleeping, finally got her to get into therapy. And I told her, I said, both your parents were Holocaust survivors. You've been carrying this. You've never been in therapy. I had.
Right.
I said, you got to process through that.
Right.
So she finally went. So, I supported her through that struggle, got her into therapy. And she thought that she really worked through some stuff, but she still wasn't feeling great.
Right.
She went to my doctor at the time, who was an integrative doctor or functional medicine, natural and Western medicine, checked her hormone levels, and they were way out of whack. And one of them was progesterone, and that's needed for anxiety. So the doctor put her on bioidentical hormones. 4 days later, she was back. It was unbelievable. It was miraculous.
Right.
Now, she had also got on Paxil. A regular doctor put her on Paxil, but that didn't really do anything.
Right.
It seemed like it was the hormones once they got back into balance. For a year and a half, she was great. Friends of ours would come up and go, whatever she's on, I want it.
Right.
And it didn't seem like she was in a manic state.
No, it just stabilized her and brought her back to where she had always been.
Right. I mean, she wasn't spending money like crazy. I mean, we did do a couple of renovations in the house, but nothing that was financially taxing.
Right.
So I never gave it another thought. About a year and a half later, I and her doctor said, you've been on medication for a year. Why don't you try tapering off?
Right.
Make sure the doctor manages it. Because that was the typical thing. If you've never had a history, you get on an antidepressant, for a year and try to wean off.
Correct.
And she did. And about 4 weeks later, she went down again. So this time, all right, go back to your therapist, go back to your doctor, and let's go visit, the doctor and get those hormones checked again. Unfortunately, the doctor, her own tragedy, passed away unexpectedly. So she couldn't get in to see the woman who took her place for about 3 months. So she struggled again for about another 4 or 5 months.
It's awful.
So January 8th of 2012, she finally got to see the doctor. They re-prescribed the bioidentical hormones.
Right.
And it was day 4. And I told her, just like the last time, tomorrow's probably going to be the day. She woke up that morning in the middle of the night and woke me up, and she said, "Oh, I had a horrible dream. Everything was black. But you weren't there." I said, "Well, it was a dream. I'm right here, right next to you. Everything's going to be okay." That next morning, I said, we got up, and I could tell she didn't have a good start to that day.
Mm.
And my mother had just gotten out of the hospital. I was her caretaker.
Right.
Okay.
So I wanted to go to yoga class just to have a little bit of a break. And I remember stepping out of the front door and going, should I go or should I stay?
Mm.
So I went back in the house and I yell up, Suzette, when I get back from yoga, we'll go to the Camp Farmers Market. We used to love to do that. Even though we lived in Alpharetta, we'd go down there. And she said, great. A couple of weeks before that, I took her up to Sawtee, Georgia, to a little coffee shop we like, just to get her away.
Right.
So I go to yoga. So I come out of yoga class and I look at my phone. It was an older style.
Yeah.
And it's like, who do I call first? Do I call my mother to see how she's doing? Or do I call Suzette? I call my mother. And, typical mother, she's like, how you doing, Mom? Horrible, in her Brooklyn. What do you mean horrible? The food here, it's terrible. Okay, Mom.
Of course, typical.
Right. So I'm on the way home and I run into Whole Foods just to get some apples. So I told my wife I'd be home at 11:30. I got home at 12. And that's when I found her.
Oh, goodness.
So the guilt,
Mm-hmm.
of being 30 minutes late. And I don't share too many, graphic details. It's one of the things we're told not to do, but it was by hanging.
Mm.
And I could tell she was gone, but she hadn't been gone long. That I can't share. So I call 911 and I said, no, sirens, just get here.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. And of course they worked on her and he looked at me and said, she's gone. I said, I know,
Mm-hmm.
you can look in the eyes and you can tell.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I knew she was gone.
Yeah.
So they told me to go downstairs. What I didn't realize, I was now a suspect in a murder
Oh my God.
because I wanted to go back and sit, be with her.
Oh.
And they said I couldn't go upstairs.
Oh.
I said, what do you mean? It's my wife. I'm going to go upstairs and be with her.
Mm.
You can't go upstairs. You have to stay here. It's an investigation. So I'm sitting there
Oh my God.
feeling like, all right, I'm now being investigated for murder. I got to call my boys. Those are the 3 worst phone calls I've ever had to make in my life.
My gosh.
Absolutely the 3 worst.
Oh.
So I did those
Absolutely.
3.
And you told them on the call, or you said, come to the house?
No, I told them, I called them, holding back much of the tears as I could, but they can tell.
Right.
Mhm.
I just said, Mom's gone.
Mm.
You need to get over here. They knew she had been struggling. They didn't realize.
Right.
to
To
what level.
extent. Right.
Oh my
And
goodness.
then I called my brother-in-law because Janine was in Israel with my mother-in-law.
Okay.
Oh my
So he had to
gosh.
call them.
Wow.
And then I called my sister, who I can hear on the phone, just lost it,
Right.
and
Right.
my brother.
Yeah.
And slowly everybody else got called, but I was just sitting there totally numb.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's I mean, all death is painful. All of
Right.
it.
Of course.
But what I learned is with suicide, there's two uh, phases of grief, if you will, that are significantly more intense than any other death. And I'm not minimizing any other
Of
death.
course.
No, no.
Number one is the guilt.
Mm.
Why did I go to yoga?
Right.
Why didn't I stay home? All the what ifs.
Right.
And then the why. Why did this happen? Why didn't she call? Why didn't she call me? Why didn't she call? She worked as an outreach director for a psychology practice, also in addition to teaching.
Right.
She could have called any psychiatrist in the city. Why didn't she do that? Why didn't she call her boss, who is a neuropsychologist,
Right.
who we both were very friendly with?
Right.
Why didn't she call one of her friends for weeks? Now, what I did, knowing about grief and knowing about unresolved grief, because when I lost my father in 2002, I did the typical male thing. After 7 days of Shiva, I thought I was, all right, you go on with life.
Right. Right.
But my heart rate was in the upper 90s
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
And I was a runner. My heart
Right.
rate to this day is in the upper 50s.
Right.
And heart palpitations. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to the doctor, and you're fine, but you got the stuff going on. And that's when I put two and two together. And got this great book called Mourning and Mitzvah by Ann Brenner.
Oh.
Okay.
And it walks you through the full year of grief based on the teachings of Kabbalah.
Right.
Wow.
And it's a workbook style. So for each of the 7 days of Shiva, 30 days of Shloshim,
Right.
every day throughout that, she asked different questions, and that helped with my dad. Having learned that, I got myself right into therapy.
Yeah.
A week later, after Suzette died, after Shiva.
Wow.
And if it can, for the listeners, these are the different aspects of the Jewish mourning process.
Correct.
Yes. So,
Right. Shiva is the 7 intense days right after the funeral.
right.
And then for 30 days, you're not supposed to go to parties or celebrations. Go back to work and everything else. And then every day for a year, you say a particular prayer.
Right. Mourner's Kaddish.
Yeah.
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 And so I went to therapy. I found a grief counselor through our friend, the neuropsychologist. And she was wonderful, but she didn't get suicide. And I knew it right away. This happened in our bedroom. I couldn't go back into the bedroom.
Right.
Of
Of
course.
course.
And so the first thing she said, oh, no, you have to reclaim your bedroom. You have to reclaim your bed. I said, that's
No,
not going to
It's
happen.
too
No.
triggering. Yeah.
Every time I look at the doorway,
Yeah.
I know what I'm going to see.
Right.
And in fact, I didn't come home for 2 weeks. I stayed at my sister-in-law's house. I couldn't even be in the house.
Right.
And then after that, when I did go home, actually, after that 2 weeks, I spent 2 weeks at my mother-in-law's house. So it was well over a month before I can even go home.
I
And
get that.
Yeah. I
100%.
can't blame you.
Yeah.
And my wonderful sons each took a turn staying with me. So the middle one stayed for 6 weeks with me, and the older one stayed a month.
Was he married already? Because you had said he was getting married.
Getting married.
But
Right.
he wasn't married yet.
No,
Okay.
their wedding was scheduled for May.
Okay.
Oh, and then they
So-
moved it.
Right. No, they kept
Oh,
it.
they
Kept
kept
it?
it.
Right.
Okay.
In fact, May 11th.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Wow,
Mother's
wow.
Day. Wow.
Yeah.
Close to Mother's Day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just took me a while. I couldn't focus on anything.
Right. Those executive functioning skills. The grief brain, it just takes over.
And I use that analogy because what came out of all of that was my daughter-in-law, who Alexis, got people from the Link Counseling Center in Sandy Springs
Yes.
Yeah.
to make a home visit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I knew the seed. ironically, Suzette knew Iris Bolton, who founded the Link
The
Counseling
Link,
Center.
wow. And the Link is a phenomenal organization and resource in Atlanta
Yeah.
around mental health and specifically around loss and
Suicide.
suicide. And yeah.
Yeah, the Link is the National Resource Center for Suicide Aftercare.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realize that. Yeah.
And so I went there and found the perfect grief counselor. Saw him every week for a year and a half. And then after a year and a half, I did the training to become a facilitator of a survivor of suicide support group.
Amazing.
And I was going to group monthly. I was seeing him weekly and going to group monthly.
Mm-hmm.
And it took, because you have to have two facilitators. And I wanted to start a group in Decatur because there were already two groups in Sandy Springs, but there was nothing for people who live in town. So I was still living in Alpharetta. But a year later, I moved back to Decatur where we first started. And I just love the area.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to start an in-town group. And it took another couple of years. And finally, I just told the Link, I'm just going to start. The group is needed.
Right.
Right.
So I'm just going to solo facilitate.
Yeah.
So I started the group in 2017.
Wow.
And it's still going to this day.
Good for you.
We
And
meet.
you still facilitated?
Yep.
Amazing.
We facilitate now. Now there is a co-facilitator.
Mhm.
She
Okay.
trained 3 years ago. And we meet at the Shambhala Center in Decatur
Yeah.
the last Monday of a month.
Okay.
But once a month, we get together and it's my way of honoring Suzette's memory.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Having walked this walk and now being, 12 years down the road, get to be the role model for the new people to
Correct.
see
That
that.
you can live a life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you find that as part of your grief process? I know David Kessler recently came out with a book about how finding your purpose is like the missing stage of grief. Has that been part of your process and purpose?
100%.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because I had trained as a life and wellness coach from 1999 to 2002. So I was dabbling in that on the side.
Mm-hmm.
After she died, I completely transformed, about a year after, transformed that practice into grief counseling.
Wow.
And all I worked with was people who lost loved ones to suicide. And I did that for about 5 years. And I had to step back from the one-on-one because I had 4 clients. 3 of them were mothers, 2 of them who lost their only child.
Oh my.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so talking with these 4 women every week,
It's a lot.
yeah,
It's a
I went
lot.
to my therapist and he's like, Mitch, you got to step away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is, I'm pretty good at not taking on other people. Like I can be compassionate
Mm-hmm.
without being empathic.
Mm.
So empathic means you're taking on their
Yeah.
suffering.
Yeah.
Compassion means you're being with people in their suffering.
Yeah.
I was becoming empathic.
Do you think that in any way, I know that, becoming the grief counselor and doing all that, in any way, did you, looking back now, do you think it masked your own grief? Or do you think that it helped you to bring your grief to the fore?
That's a
'Cause-
great question
Yeah.
because a lot of people go into a counseling
Mhm.
role to, by proxy, deal
Correct.
with what they're not dealing with.
Yeah.
Like I can deal with your stuff, but I
Correct.
don't want.
Right.
In my case, it wasn't that at all
Right.
because they're very specific in who they train. You have to be at least a year and a half out from the
Got it.
loss,
Right.
and you have to get approval from your therapist that you have dealt enough with your own grief that you're going to be able to be present for other people.
Yeah. Because that's
And I was.
important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's good that they have those like standards and requirements. It's part of the
Yeah, because you can cause more harm than help
exactly.
Yeah.
if
Absolutely.
you're not ready.
Yeah.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how were your sons in this process? How did they process? Different, was each one different? Did you process as a family? Did you counsel them at all?
Yeah, yes to all of it. So, as you know, we were very open from the start.
Yes,
You know, I
very.
was leading a community in North Georgia,
Yes, I remember that.
and Suzette was very active teaching in the Atlanta area. We knew all the reform and conservative rabbis and communities.
Yes,
And she knew all of the education directors from every synagogue.
right.
So I got a call from the rabbi at Beit Havarim, the Reconstructionist synagogue. He said, Mitch, people are talking. This was like 2 days after.
Wow.
He said, was it an aneurysm? Was it a heart attack? What? I said, Josh, it was suicide. And feel free to let people know. Because if she could die by suicide, anybody could die.
Anyone can.
Right.
In fact, one of the psychologists at her practice told me at one of the memorial services, he said, if I made a list of 100 people who are most likely to die by suicide, she wouldn't be even in the top 200.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the thing with suicide. So I'm trained in internal family systems, which is a psychological modality that a lot of therapists use,
Right.
and a lot of life coaches are using it now. I'm kind of in that gray area between the two, because as a rabbi, you're trained to do some
Sure.
pastoral
Of
counseling.
course.
So I use the model a lot. Without getting into too much detail, one of the protective parts that we all have is called a firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
These are reactive parts of our psyches, right? And these are the parts that react when other parts of us are wounded or hurting. And it's usually very young parts of us that got wounded. So typical firefighters, alcohol, drugs, work, sex, internet. So you notice all of the addictive behaviors. In the IFS world, we don't consider those bad. Those are parts that are doing their job to help other parts of the psyche that are deeply wounded.
Right.
And the work is to heal those young wounded parts so these reactive parts don't have to work so hard.
Amazing.
We all have a suicidal
Wow.
firefighter too.
Mhm.
All of us. We're not immune from it.
Right. Right.
So the way I work with people when they're ready to hear it is I'll say the day that your loved one died, their system, their internal psyche was so overwhelmed with despair and pain that imagine the alarm went off and this firefighter had one job to do,
Right.
and that is to put out the fire.
Mm.
But that firefighter didn't know it was a permanent job. For some people, that really helps them understand, because I don't believe suicide is a choice. I think, there's a minority of people. One of my teachers of IFS, in fact, Canadian, had cancer of the throat. And when he got to a point where he couldn't teach, he did physician assisted suicide.
Right.
That's different. I'm talking about the 95% of people who die by suicide are so overwhelmed
So overwhelmed.
by despair, depression, anxiety.
Right.
In some cases, it's a physical ailment, and they
Right.
just are tired of dealing with it.
Right.
Exactly.
The two types of illnesses that are more prevalent are bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Percentage-wise, more suicides are by people suffering from bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Same thing, you're in that low swing. You don't think you're ever going to get out of it. That's the despair and the overwhelm. The firefighter comes out, and Suzette died. In hindsight, and looking at the symptoms she had, she likely had what's called type 2 bipolar disorder that expressed during menopause. So I developed a huge respect for menopause
Right.
and a huge disrespect for doctors like the one she had,
Yeah.
who said, Suzette, you're just going to have to learn to deal with it.
Right. Yeah.
She came home that day, and that's like,
Yeah.
I wanted to, what to that guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
In his defense, he was an older doctor. He didn't get it.
Yeah.
But when she went to a female doctor, she got it.
She got it.
But as it turns out, we don't know. If she had waited another day or two till those hormones kicked in, she could still be here. But that morning, She was so overcome with despair.
Mm-hmm.
And I also believe shame. I think the shame she carried was looking at her life.
Yeah.
You know, she had three, you know, good sons who were well educated.
Amazing boys.
You know, we were financially secure,
Right.
not well off, but certainly not struggling.
Right.
And look what her father went through.
Yeah.
And who am I to be struggling with depression? And so she's seeing what her father went through.
Right.
And I believe inside, you know, when you're in depression, you're not thinking rationally.
Right.
And so this shame part comes in and says, who are you to be complaining
Right.
and struggling? Look at what your father went through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also her career, her interests. I mean, I tell myself there's always someone who has it worse than me. So, you know, it's no matter where I am mentally and emotionally, it can't be that bad because so many other people are struggling more. And we so often put our own needs aside and then it's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I wonder for being around like in the field of mental health and it just yeah.
It made it too much for her.
Right.
It was
Right.
like her own struggle and then the struggle of everybody else that she felt
Right.
she was responsible for.
I believe that.
And that's a
Yeah.
lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mitch, when it did happen, how was the community? Because you were so open about it from get-go. How did the community, how did they react to you?
It's another great question.
Right.
So when I work with people and this happens, I'll always ask the question because, you know, we're facilitators, right? We don't tell people what to do or what not to do. But I'll always ask this question. After your loved one died, who didn't show up that you expected would show up?
Right.
And who showed up that you never expected to show up? That's fairly consistent.
Yeah.
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 And I believe the people that don't show up are afraid
Yeah. They
of
are.
what if that had happened to them?
Yeah.
So they were afraid of, you know, maybe that's going to happen to me. How am I going to deal with this? So they just avoid it. Again, it's just that reactive firefighter of them. Avoid.
Right.
Remember, these parts want to numb out or distract.
Right.
But the other people who you might barely know are calling or visiting,
Are checking in.
and they're doing the best thing you can do with somebody who's in grief. How are you feeling right now?
Yes.
Exactly.
And be honest.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, not, oh, I'm doing fine.
Right.
When I hear that, it's like, all right, now I want to hear the truth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How bad is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you had that around you. So just going back, Mitch, how did this loss? I know that we all are impacted by the losses that we have in our lives, whatever way, but how did this particular loss, how did losing Suzette to suicide change your whole view on life, relationships? Was it a long time to feel in a place where you could pursue a relationship? How did it all change for you?
Well, I'll share the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, please
Please.
do.
So right after she died, so she died in January.
Right.
When I did come home and I was finally on my own, I was really angry at God.
Mm-hmm.
I was angry at her too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I never slept in my room again. I slept in my son's room on a twin bed with her professional picture there. I come home from work because I worked at home at the time.
Okay.
And I found an office nearby where they let me share some space. It
Okay.
was really nice of them to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
An example of somebody I barely knew
Mm-hmm.
who said, if I can do anything for you, let me know. I said, do you have office space? Come on in.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That was
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I come home, I remember taking my backpack off, throwing it on the floor, running up the steps, and screaming at her photo. And then I'd go outside and scream at God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my neighbors must have thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
And then one time there was a thunderstorm, right? Because springtime came. And in the middle of a thunderstorm, I went out to walk my dog. And I walked out in the middle of the backyard and looked up and I said, "You SOB, I dare you. Take me now."
Wow.
Lightning striking all over the place.
Mm.
It was like right out of Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Dan on top of the mast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. I'm like shaking my fist, "You bastard."
Yeah.
You know, just, and of course nothing happened, but I got wet. And I came in the house and all of a sudden, just this epiphany. It's like, you couldn't have prevented it because you didn't cause it. So I decided to fire God. I'm a rabbi and I fired God. And as you know, God works anonymously. I get a call from the husband of a rabbi who I know, maybe a week later. And he's like, first they invited me over Shabbat dinner, which was great. So this is about 6 weeks out. And he said, "I'm thinking of starting this book club. And there's this book that I'd really like for you to read. I think you'll be perfect for it. It's called God is Everywhere by Jay Michelson,
Right.
A Radical Path to Non-Dual Judaism." So non-dual means there's no separation between God and creation. And I read this book because I was also heavily informed by Buddhism over the years, which is a non-dual
Right.
tradition. And I read the book, got like a chapter in, and it's like, this is it. So I rehired God, but not the God out there, no heaven, the God in you two and the God in me. And I started realizing that my therapist was God manifesting as Stewart, right? And then the PTSD therapist I went to for a short time. Thankfully, I didn't have PTSD from what I saw.
Right.
And I can only attribute that to being a rabbi. I'd been around a lot of deaths, you know,
Sure.
funerals, hospice visits.
Correct.
I'm thankful,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
just active grace. She was God manifesting as her. And I just started seeing the people that were reaching out and providing support, especially the ones I didn't even ask, they were God manifesting as them. And so it's so aligned with this book, and that's been my theology ever since.
Amazing. It's really
So that changed. I had to deal with a lot of guilt for the next 2 or 3 years because I started to do things that I hadn't done before. And I was sitting with, did it take her death for me to start exploring this? And my therapist was great. He would say, no, she died and an opportunity was presented.
right.
Most people don't take the opportunity,
Because they don't see it.
or they sit in the grief and just go
Correct.
back to
Correct.
the path they'd been on. But I changed paths. Within 5 years of her death, I'd left the synagogue I was supporting because I couldn't stay in my lane anymore.
Right.
I went back and became a certified spiritual director, working with people of all faith traditions.
Mhm.
Wow.
I discovered the Enneagram and became certified as an Enneagram consultant. And then I discovered internal family systems and became a practitioner of internal family systems. The ugly, so that's the good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I found a new path. And my therapist also said, all you did is you looked on the shelf that you would put everything on for
Correct.
29 years, because that's what you do when you're married,
Correct.
right? You're raising a family of 3 kids. It's their world, and you just happen to be living in it,
Correct.
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
You're experiencing
Yeah.
Manhattan. You're too
Exactly.
young. But the boys were all on their own,
Yes.
Right.
right? So I was finally able to, well, I want to do this, or I want to try that.
Yeah.
I want to start collecting guitars. So I started doing that.
Right.
I want to move back to Decatur. So I did that.
Mm.
So the bad is I got in a relationship after her death way too soon. And it was a mutual friend. It was one of Suzette's students. It was somebody that I had taught. And I knew her husband too. They were divorcing. Suzette died. she was as upset. She loved Suzette. She was grieving that too, and consoling each
Just-
other.
Right.
Before you know it, there was a lot of feeling.
Right.
And, I told her, look, I can't be with anybody for at least a year. I didn't make a year. And it turns out that we just do things, well, especially conflict, very differently.
Mhm.
And so after 3 years, I ended that relationship. There were some positives.
Sure.
I learned that you could love again.
Sure.
Early on, it was like, I'll never love anyone
Yeah.
again.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, I'm relational. In the Enneagram, I'm a type 2, which is a nurturer and a caregiver.
Yes.
Also, the most relational of all the 9 types on the
Right.
Enneagram. And I was terrified of being alone. I'm only 55. It's like, I don't want to be alone. I knew this woman. It wasn't like I had to go back out and start dating again.
Correct. Was easy.
Yeah.
It was just easy and
Exactly.
comfortable.
That's the best way to put it.
Right.
It was there work? Of course, there's work in any relationship.
But it
But
was easy and comfortable.
we already knew each other for 4 years
Correct.
at that time.
Correct.
And then about 9 months later, I started seeing someone else, and that was a short-term relationship. And fortunately, I met Hannah right after that, and that was exactly the right time.
It was the right time, the right person.
And she's a psychotherapist. And,
Okay.
she had a 10-year marriage that was very rocky.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, she went back and became a social worker after the divorce. So she had a midlife change.
Right. Right.
And it's such a wonderful relationship. And I've often said, Hannah, why couldn't I met you like 18 months after Suzette died and not gone through all that other stuff?
But you had to.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
You
She
had
said,
to.
we might have met and we
It
wouldn't have
wouldn't have
connected.
been correct.
Is that I was in a different place
Yeah.
in 2014 than 2018, and you were in a different place in 2014 than 2018.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
It's all timing.
That's
yeah,
right. Yeah.
It's all timing.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to people listening? How to navigate the pain in the beginning? I don't think you can lessen it because you have to go through the pain. What helped you to ease some of the pain?
it was the Link Counseling Center.
Right. So, therapy.
It was therapy, but it was also how they describe the grief journey as coming in waves.
Yeah.
And early on, the waves are very close and very big.
Right.
And I came up with the term, the 285 cry.
Yeah.
You're driving on 285 and out of nowhere,
Yeah.
you just lose it.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
You pull over.
Yes. How
Yeah.
true is that?
And
Yeah.
285 is the perimeter going around Atlanta. So
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I-285.
Yeah.
So things a wave would come out of the blue. One time I was working and a song came on the radio,
Yeah. That'll do it.
Oh my God.
Tears from Heaven.
The music.
That'll do
Yes.
it. That'll do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lost it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another time at work, I was just working, just started thinking about her, got up and ran into the bathroom and lost it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when we can accept that,
Mm-hmm.
whether we're male or female, that I just got hit with a big wave. It will, like any wave, it'll knock you on your butt. And you just get up and wait for the next wave. And eventually the waves will spread out and get less intense. The other thing that really helped was when I learned the dual process of grief. And it's in the book that I co-authored, The Dual Process of Grief by Strobe and Shute. And I downloaded the paper and read it, and it had a diagram that was perfect because it showed that the process of grief bounces between grieving and recovery, and it's not linear. So you can bounce between one and the other,
Correct.
back and forth, up and down. And that was really helpful because oftentimes when I was counseling people, it's like, I was thinking about them. It's been 9 months. I lost it. I feel like it's the day after.
Right.
I said, no, you got hit by a big wave and think about what it was like that first day and think about what your day was. Let's acknowledge and validate today was a bad day. And that's when I said, you know, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
And to
That-
be okay with that.
To be okay with
Yeah.
that it is not, grief is not linear
Right.
and there's no time frame.
There's no time frame.
Some people start to feel better after a year. Some people, they tell me the second year was worse than the first year.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no one right way, but there is one wrong way, and that's to repress grief.
Yes.
And Vander Kolk wrote a great book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
And unprocessed grief or trauma is stored in the body.
Yeah.
And just like I said earlier with my father, when my heart rate was up in the 90s for weeks, heart palpitations, my body was telling me, you got to deal with this.
Right.
Right.
Or that heavy feeling right before like the anniversary of the death, or,
Yes.
you just feel different. Yes, it totally keeps the score.
Right. And that's, the anticipatory anxiety
Yes.
leading up to a birth date, an anniversary date.
Correct.
And I'll tell people who aren't Jewish, I'll tell them, and not necessarily it's a Jewish ritual, but I said, on their anniversary or their death, why don't you light a candle? Just light a candle to remind yourself of this day, but focus on the life they lived, not necessarily how they left life.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And
So important.
And I learned this from a couple, and I started doing this for Suzette, is couple lost their son. He was schizophrenic. They knew the day was coming. He told them. And still, when I got the call, it was still a shock.
Of course.
And it took them about 5 years. And on his birthday one year, some of his friends came over and they had photographs of him. So next year, she brought a birthday cake and invited the friends. And from that day forward, they always celebrated they celebrated the life he lived,
Right.
not how he left it.
Yes.
So what I do on her birthday, I make a donation to Trees Atlanta. And I've been doing that now for 10 years. So there's hundreds and hundreds of trees that are planted around city of Atlanta in her memory.
Right.
I love that. Yes.
And on the anniversary of her death, I make a big donation to the Link Counseling Center.
Right.
Because, they supported me, and it's a nonprofit. They're on scale as far as rate, and they'll never turn anybody away.
Yeah.
Right.
The training I did to facilitate the SOS group, the Survivors of Suicide group, we had about 50 people from all over the country.
Wow.
And now I co-teach that class each year for new facilitators.
That's amazing.
It's mostly local people now, but every once in a while we have people that do come in from
Yeah.
out of town just to get
Amazing.
trained, because there's no other training for this.
Right.
Right.
And then you've written a book yourself.
It's called Men in Grief, Stories of Growth Through Struggles with Trauma and Loss. The bulk of it is 4 chapters. One of them is mine. I had 3 other friends write a whole chapter of their own trauma and their own losses, how they dealt with it or how they didn't deal with it, and finally had to deal with it.
Right.
The last chapter was donated by one of my teachers on using internal family systems for grief.
Got it.
The introduction was written by my grief counselor at the Link,
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
in his work with men.
Interesting. That's grief from the male perspective.
Yeah.
I think there's such a stigma with how men grieve. It's expected that a woman grieves and cries and is emotional and
shows it outwardly.
Yeah.
Right.
whereas
right.
a man, cowboys don't cry. So
It's the biggest psychological damage that we can do to our sons,
yeah,
is to teach them to not be vulnerable.
correct.
Vulnerability is a superpower. So you can be
Agreed.
strong and you can be action oriented and you could be logical, all the masculine energy that we all like, and also be soft and vulnerable and grieve and feel sadness. And what I've learned with men, Anger is always covering
Yeah.
first fear
100%.
and then hurt.
Hurt.
With
Yeah.
women, it's the reverse.
Correct.
They're not allowed to feel the anger.
Correct.
So what shows up first is the fear, the hurt, and then the anger.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So any like quick tips as Mama Bear over here raising an 8-year-old boy who we are a big feelings house, and Jack, I mean, even in the car yesterday, feelings. We always have to talk about feelings. I hate talking about feelings, but anything I can do to help, set him up for success, just like
Being able
like
to
one or two
feel.
things I can really.
Yeah.
The thing that we did with our guys,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned this from Jewish Family Services when I did some volunteer social work way back in the 90s. We were taught to do it around Shabbat dinner, but it can be
Mhm.
once a week. Just have a family meeting and everybody goes around the table and says what went well this past week and what didn't go well. And the parents do the same
Mm-hmm.
because that teaches the kids that
Right.
even parents struggle.
Correct.
Mhm.
And we validate. We never criticize if they say, well, I'm sad because my friend took my pencil.
Mhm.
Oh, but you had another pencil in there. No, we don't do that. Wow, that must have been really sad
Mhm.
that Michael took your pencil.
Mhm.
Say more about that.
Okay.
And so what we're doing is we're creating safety for the kids to share. And hopefully they'll take that out in the world. Unfortunately, what happens when puberty kicks in, that's when the
Boy.
Suppression.
the suppression and the socialization and the peer pressure
Yeah.
Okay.
and the guys who show a lot of emotion, they get bullied.
Mm.
But if they have a safe place to do it,
Mhm.
and hopefully home is the safest place,
Right.
or with certain friends, they'll be fine.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Wow, this has been amazing, Mitch.
Yeah, I've learned a lot.
So, yeah, really. And I'm sure all you listeners out there are going to have a lot to take away and a lot to
Mhm.
think about. And, thank you so much for opening up this world and, being vulnerable.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you
Thank
guys
you.
for
Truly.
having me. And if the listeners get one thing from it, it was worth our time.
Yeah. And I have no doubt they'll get
Same.
more than one thing.
Definitely.
The name of my organization is Compassionate Presence, and the website is www.cp-atl.com. So listeners can look it up and see the work that I do.
And we'll also include that in the show notes and Substack and elsewhere. So thank you.
Thank you so much,
Perfect.
Mitch.
Okay, well, thank you for listening to this episode of Grief and Grit. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and you can listen to this episode on any platform where you can find podcasts. Be sure to share with others, and we will check in with you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Till next time, everybody, take care and we'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you love what you heard, please follow Grief and Grit and share our podcast with your friends and family.